Hey everybody, welcome to another talk for the Adventum Mindfulness Triathlon. I'm so glad you guys are here. I'm very excited about our topic today. We're here with RJ Ferguson. He is a counselor at Hope Road Counseling in Longview, Texas. And we are going to cover all things surrounding counseling and trauma. And we're going to talk about the different types of counseling that's available, why someone would want to go to counseling, and again, the different types of counseling therapy, I guess modalities you would call it.
Modalities.
Tools, techniques that you are available to you, because there's not just one way, just like there's not one way to experience healing in your life. There's a lot of different approaches that you can experience when it comes to trauma or things in your life that you're really wanting to seek healing or closure or resolve in. So a little bit about RJ, I'd love to introduce him. He is a marriage and family therapist, a counselor at, again, Hope Road Counseling. And he has a passion for helping people from all walks of life. He's incredibly talented. That's why I'm so pumped to talk to him, because he has such a broad depth when it comes to his practice. He specializes in treatment of trauma and attachment and has experience working with depression, anxiety, marriage and family conflict, ambivalent young adults, and adolescent stage of life issues. He also is specialized in sensory motor psychotherapy, a body-oriented treatment approach to healing the damaging effects of trauma and developmental wounds. He's had lots of practice, whether it's private practice, intensive outpatient clinics, residential treatment for adolescents. He's worked with inpatient psychiatric units for children and adults. So as you can see, he has a very broad and deep practice when it comes to helping people with trauma. So again, RJ, thank you so much for being here, for being with our participants and helping us understand this very, it almost, I think it can kind of be, I don't know if elusive is the right word, but sometimes counseling can seem a little out there, or I don't know what it is, or it seems like it's for a certain type of people. I certainly have had counseling several times in my life, and it's been tremendous. And so please share a little bit about what you do and your journey, as well as how you got to where you are and the type of practice that you do.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Gosh, what I do is I get to work with people. I think counseling is it's hard to really just, I think, define what counseling is. It's a physical place. I'm in my office. Sometimes I get the opportunity to be in other environments to be with people. I would say it's a process. It involves relationship, and it's a place to learn skills to navigate what you may be going through. And sometimes I like to think of it in, when I'm with someone, you want the mild, medium, or hot salsa.
That's awesome.
when it comes to what we need to do right now. My journey to get here is I think what's interesting is growing up. I wasn't. Counseling or therapy is really not in my background. I really have no idea what it was. So before entering graduate school, I spent 10 years in business retail.
Oh, okay.
But what I found that was fulfilling, what mattered to me, were the relationships that came through the door, and the stories, good, bad, I got to interact with on a daily basis. And I was also fortunate to work at a place that emphasized relationship with each other, staff, and the customer coming in. And I just had a longing to do that better, to be honest with you. And long story short, I just found myself working at helping a customer who happened to be a therapist, counselor. And so I was like, what is that? And basically just investigated that and found myself in graduate school. And
oh, wow.
Long story short, that's where I'm at.
That's amazing. So that was a very divine connection right there. You were meant to help that person, and they were able to share a little bit.
Yeah, I was definitely at a place in life thinking about the future and what that needed to look like. And so that was a gift. And that person is actually the director at Hope Road.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
So yeah, just kind of how the story came back together.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. It's very special. I like to share that.
So how long have you been practicing?
So I've been officially practicing for about, so 2021, only about 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. And what are the type of modalities or types of therapy that you offer? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so my training is in sensory motor psychotherapy, and so what led me to what we call SPI, or that sensory motor community, is I felt sensory motor offers a more holistic perspective in being with another person, and so I really wanted to be a part of a training and learn when it comes to, as you're working with someone from a cognitive, emotional, and body level, how to be with them well. Another thing important to me too is when it comes to the spirituality and how that works together. Just, you could say the intersection between theology and psychology, and more for me today is more of just intersection between spirituality and neuroscience. And so I've been fortunate to work under Sonia Reeder here, who I'd say her gift to the world is from that lens, if you will. And when it comes to understanding, I think when it comes to from a theological perspective, I think understanding God in himself is in relationship. And if I can, as I'm journeying and understanding what that means, and how that calls me to be with others, I think that matters, and how that connects with, psychology, mental health, all the better. I'm still kind of learning how to integrate all that, but it's something I'm definitely passionate about.
That's awesome. Your approach sounds very holistic. And I think sometimes when people hear counseling, they think just the talk. And
right.
Think, well, that's all. We just sit there and talk, and maybe think, oh, I don't need to do that. I can talk to my friend or whatever. When obviously there's way more to that. So could you break down the difference between cognitive behavioral therapy, where you do go into that aspect where you are talking, but what does that even mean to do? Let's say that's top down, as that's known as, versus the bottom up type therapy where you involve the body. What does that even look like?
Right. So I think being a Western, or being American, being an East Texan, I think we're taught to walk through life, think through life, manage our life, if you will. And the way we do that is, top down. Like, we want to activate higher cortex thinking to try to think, problem solve, get through the situation, get through the moment. And so, but you could say what the field of psychology, especially the field of trauma, is discovering when someone is overwhelmed, activated, stressed, they can't necessarily think their way out of that moment. Many times that will lead to more activation, triggering, more sense of feeling overwhelmed, which will lead to more shame. Okay.
Yes.
And so you have what's considered bottom up processing. And so, top down, if you just think cognitive thoughts, bottom up is, we're talking about automatic, somatic experiences. So when it comes to the body, we're considering sensation, 5 sense perception, impulse movements. Those are kind of the categories we're looking at for the body to process. Usually what we see when someone is traumatized, that the body processing can't happen. You say it's hijacked. Okay.
Yeah.
In the moment of, in the moment of trauma, which is, when someone's experiencing overwhelming event, it doesn't have time to think. The body immediately acts. Well, traumatization is when someone's caught around that event, right? Their body is still caught around the experiences, the affect, the you can say the visual perception of the event even too. Is, you can say, caught in the body. So anytime the body's triggered, it's going to go back into its habitual responses of survival, and it's hijacked, if you will. And so moving towards body processing, which doesn't really involve, content, right? I don't need the explicit narrative. We don't have to go back and, you don't
rehash the whole thing or anything.
Right. Which is usually re-traumatizing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so what we are invited to notice is what the body's doing in the moment of activation, and how we process through that in a safe way without getting overactivated or caught back into that, which will work its way up, if you will, into the higher cortex thinking. And so it's, so it's a little difference between top-down management, bottom-up processing, bottom-up hijacking. Because you need both. You need top-down processing and bottom-up processing. We do need both to work together. But what happens in trauma, it's kind of disintegrated, right? It's not, it's not put together the right way. So in trauma work, we try to reintegrate that, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I brought a book that I want to share and show the audience if they're interested. This is like the trauma book.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good one.
The Body Keeps Score. It's by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. I'm always worried I'm going to mess up his name, but phenomenal book. There's lots of books on trauma, and you're familiar with his work, RJ.
Yes.
You're like very familiar. So a lot of what you just shared is in this book and talks about that.
Yeah, and he also gets to, and I don't think I answered the additional question earlier, because other modalities or methods to helping others. I mean, because that book is a great book to understand the history of trauma.
Yes.
What it is, how this word even come to be. Yeah. And get a real distinct understanding of how the body, this is a body experience, and what to do about it. And he provides ample research, points you to other resources. And so I would say that's a great place to begin.
And I've heard too, when it comes to, let's say if someone's triggered, it's not so much that of course they could be reliving in their mind, but a lot of times it's their body experiencing the trauma. And that's what it is to be triggered. It's like you're upregulated. You have the, racing heart, you have the sweaty palm. I mean, there's a panic attack. I mean, there's all these different sensations that you can feel in your body. And so why is it important to integrate? What does it bring, like a sense of, I don't know if this is the right word. Is it kind of when you reintegrate the person where they have the narrative going on and their body's being triggered, is it kind of, if you can reintegrate it in a holistic way, does it help kind of dissolve or remove the, how does that help the person?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on the person. I mean, what that does for them, right? But you got to think of, I'm just trying to think of an example here of like a sexual abuse survivor who someone put in an overwhelming situation where they couldn't protect themselves or run away. So the body had to learn to, in some way, just freeze, to allow, to survive. And it's such a powerful moment throughout the process of therapy or counseling, is when the body comes climbs up the stress response, where it learned it needed to freeze here, but it had other instinctual drives of actions to either it wanted to run out the door and it couldn't, or it wanted to, like push the perpetrator away. These actions that didn't get to take place because the body's still stuck here, right? The freeze level or the submission level. And so, I mean, it's when it comes to bringing those actions into the present, right, if you will. That's so empowering. And in some way, I would say there's a completion to the process where the invitation is, I have a choice now, right? Yes. In the moment of feeling this sense of overwhelming ness, like I have agency, I have choice. And so being part of counseling is really, how do I support this person in a way to invite them to allow them to have that sense of choice and agency. And I would say that is vital under trauma.
Yeah, I love that, because I've had people say, not having gone to counseling and not understanding, which is all of us, if we've never been, we don't know what to experience, but ultimately that person is the one doing the inner work. I mean, the counselor's there to guide and to provide tools and to support and create the space and the safe space. And they're not there to tell you what to do or or fix you or any of those things. And that's something I kind of wanted to talk about and touch on. I'm so glad you said what you did, because the whole point is to empower the person, to give them that choice and agency back, especially in those moments when they didn't have it. And I'm really glad you touched on that, because you're there to serve them and to equip them so they can feel in control of this area of their life that has hijacked them. And
and also I think it's helpful to know that I'm called to do the same thing for myself.
Yes.
I think what allows me to be with someone well effectively is, am I also willing to do the same thing?
Yeah. No,
and so it's part of my work too, right? Yes. And so it's not that I'm above or superior. I mean, it's like I need to do the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you also gave some examples of our body's responses. Can you touch on that, about the fight, flight, freeze, just the different kinds, and also to touch on that this is our body's normal way of responding, and that there's nothing wrong with us, and that there's a reason why those responses are happening, and that those responses aren't quote, bad or wrong. Does that make sense? Like
right.
If someone freezes or someone fights or any of those, like, their body's doing what's designed to do. So it's not like they were bad when that happened. It's just that was the natural response for survival and protection.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good for people to understand the stress response system.
Yes.
And, when we're under stress or we're in trouble, our first option is cry for help. Right? Think of an infant.
Yes.
Infant needs something, infant stress, it's crying for help.
Yes.
And then usually, as you can say, you go down the ladder, you have fight, flight. So we have these, and this is fast, right? So this is instinctual.
Yes.
People need to know when we enter stress response, choice goes out the window. Okay, because your body, your brain actually shuts down the frontal cortex, where part of the brain to make decisions, focus, and goes down to subcortical regions, which is survival.
Yes.
And so these options happen real fast. So you have cry for help, fight, flight, freeze, or like the feigned death response, and then dissociate becomes an option for the body to survive as well. And so, and I think when it comes to actual trauma work, I mean, the first phase is safety.
Yeah.
So I need to know the person, is not only just feel safe and with me in my office, but also they're in an environment in which they can do this work well too, outside of the office. Because, part of the work is becoming more aware, using the body actually to become more aware of these instinctual responses that in some way hijacking the person, because they don't want to just feel this way, all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely part of the work, to kind of slow down the body's need to protect, to flee, to freeze. Yeah.
And obviously with it being a safe environment, again, you're there to serve and to help and equip the people. So the inner work is always the hardest work. It's hard. It's hard to have to talk about these areas of our life that are dark, that create shame and guilt and all these feelings. And you are providing, and counselors in general are providing, a space to help them go there where they feel safe, and then help them process it out. It's like you're guiding them through. And like you said earlier, when you are discussing these topics or kind of revisiting, you're doing it in a way that's not re-traumatizing. You're not, it's not like we're going to relive the experience. Can you kind of touch on that too? So if someone's hesitant, like, oh gosh, I don't know if I'm ready to do this, can you kind of help them understand, like, an example of a way that what it would feel like if, okay, we're going to integrate this. And you said you don't have to go into a ton of detail as to what happened, but if someone's nervous about incorporating the body, I don't know what that means. Can you kind of give a small example?
Of course, because
and I know everybody's different, and not everything's going to work. This is not like a blanket. This is the only thing we do. But
at one place, with the beauty of, like, you could say a sensory motor perspective, the beauty of that is I don't need to know the content.
Yeah.
I don't need to know the explicit nature of what happened to you. Your body tells a story, right? So that is expressed already with what we're experiencing with each other, if that makes sense. And what we can learn to do is how to attend to that, if you will. And so that usually that is you could say for my trauma clients, that's a sense of relief.
Yeah.
So that we don't, because I think there is this unhealthy expectation as they come into counseling that, oh my God, I got to share my whole story.
Yeah.
I've had clients come in actually drunk.
Oh, so they could
in preparation. I mean, just because the anxiety, fear that what they'd have to do, and that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
Because the first phase is safety. So what that means is we're teaching the body how to feel safe and present, and to teach it that it's no longer there. It's no longer in the past.
Yes.
And that's what we're dedicated to. And there's not necessarily a timeline to that.
Yeah.
But as we learn to kind of build that, you can say that place of strength and live out of that sense of strength. Then the second phase is process. Right. That's where we kind of bring it together. The top down, the bottom up come together, where we can get to what happened. But we take time doing that, because it's when we open that box, we want to have resources and tools.
Yeah.
Because when we open that box, the body's going to remember.
Yeah.
And so before we do that, we need to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then as we process, we move to integration. Kind of, you can see, it's how I see trauma work, is safety, processing, integration. And that just depends on the person. Sometimes some of that's long-term work.
Sure.
That could be 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really just depends on, the person and what they need.
Yeah. And that's great, because like you said, there's no timeline, there's no rush. It's not like, okay, we need to chop, get in and out of here. It's whenever they're ready, when they're, because it's a lot of work. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to show up and to be open, but man, how hopeful that is to know that even though trauma has happened to my body, I can also experience healing in the same body.
Right.
That it's not always going to be triggered by that moment. That can actually, now I'm not saying, I mean, who knows? It could, I mean, I'm not a counselor, so I don't know. I mean, maybe another time it could, but at least it would remove the initial very intense. Could you say like doing this type of therapy will help remove the intensity? I mean, obviously the event happened and it's, but with that integration, does it remove the intensity of the memory?
I think it is, yes. I think when you focus on a place of safety and learning how to attend to the body, and you're also changing the relationship to the body, right? Because someone who has a history of trauma usually comes in feeling shame of the way they are, or while they in beliefs of I should be like this, I should be over this. So a lot of shame. And so, and part of you can say even the early work is changing that relationship to the body, and even giving new language that's not there, because in trauma the language isn't there. I mean, that part of the brain's off.
Yeah.
Right. So what's only there in trauma is affect, this body experience, emotions, visual perception. What shuts down is language, actually. What shuts down is the narrative. And so that's the part of it. So the beauty of the work is seeing yourself in a new way and giving language to what happened to you, to promote hope, bright future, and to really affirm like your body did what it needed to do to survive. And so there's affirmation there, and how it protected you.
Yes, and validation that your body did what it was designed to do, and that there wasn't anything wrong with you. It was protecting you. And like you said, with disassociation, I could imagine that over time, your body's still trying to talk to you, and you're like, nope, or like, that's not convenient, or I'm not, and you just kind of tune out. When those things, it's really your body trying to bring things to your attention for healing, for release, for this sense of completion, or, and it sounds like that's one of the tools, like you're able to help equip the people that you work with, is that the power of listening to our body's wisdom. Our body's so wise, and really learning how to trust our body again.
Yes.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, we're more than a brain on a stick. I think.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Our
Absolutely.
mind and our bodies process information.
Yeah.
That's just, I think that's new for some people, but it's also, I think more holistic, and also allows me to be more present when I'm incorporating my whole self in this moment rather than just part of myself.
Yeah, because I was wondering, let's say for someone who thinks this is a little out there, I don't know about this body stuff, like what would you say to the person that thinks this is a little weird? what would you say to that person?
Well, I would identify with some of that, because early on in this work, it was very weird for me, because I think no one ever introduced me to consider that. Right. Yeah. And so, no, there's nothing voodoo about it, right? There's nothing like necessarily quirky. It's part of the process. It's part of being healthy and getting to know yourself more. Yeah. When you incorporate the body, and it's also, I think, things we know to be true about the body. We're learning more and more about functions of the body through neuroscience, and two, people need to know what we feel is physiological,
Yes.
right? It's not in the brain, actually. It's connected to the brain through our physiology.
Yes.
Nervous system is in the body.
Oh, yeah.
So some of this is just what is, it's what's true. And we're just not used to tapping into it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
there is wisdom there. There is
Mhm.
something to pay attention to there. You know, to you know, to help my mental health, and to also, I would just say, to allow me to be more present and engaged.
Yes. And to live fully. Because when
Yeah,
we're stuck in that traumatic experience, or our body's still there in the past, or our mind, we're not here. Like, we're
right.
not enjoying the moment. We're not fully present, like you were saying. And there's another way.
Right. And so what I do for some people is I call it check-ins.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I just, so 3 to 5 times a day for 1 minute,
Hmm.
and you pause and position yourself as the observer of yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And as you do that, I just invite people to, can you name your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
Can you name your feelings? And
Mm-hmm.
can you notice your body?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And then and basically with the body component, you're just noticing sensations.
Hmm.
Are you holding tension in the shoulders?
Yeah.
Right? You feel pressure
Are
in
you
your chest.
clenching your jaw? Are you holding your breath? Not, yeah.
So these are just small, you could just awareness exercises.
Yes.
Just, and I think really just, I find myself doing that more considering the times, because
Mm-hmm.
crisis, you could say, we're living in, and it's affecting all of us differently, but it's almost like trauma presently. Because
Yeah.
trauma work usually involves working with past trauma,
Yeah.
and we kind of have present trauma
Yeah.
right now too. So it's learn to work in it the day to day,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what really matters is, I think, not necessarily the deep work of that. It's more of how are you being present,
Yeah.
because under stress we'll be quickly caught into our habitual patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, it could lead to more stress, if you will, or even anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, these daily practices can be like like you said, 5 times a day, whether it takes 30 seconds to a minute. It's not like these meditate for an hour. It's no, I'm actually going to stop for a few moments and
Right.
and that really adds up. That compounds big time. That self-awareness really, it's a beautiful way to invest in yourself, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It creates choice.
Yes. Yes.
A question I got from that I love. There's a Kurt Thompson is another healthy resource, and he asked the question, what story are you living?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically he invites us to really, are you paying attention to what you're paying attention to?
Yeah.
And so many of us aren't. We just kind of wake up and do our thing,
Yeah.
and not really being intentional about the story we're living.
Mm-hmm.
And so these little check-in moments, or even for some people we call them Sabbath moments, is just a way to kind of pause and reflect.
Yeah.
For a minute, and to notice how you're living, or at least what story you're living and where you're living it from.
Yes, because once you're aware, you can choose to not be in that story. You can choose a different story.
Yeah.
You can choose so that's huge, because like you said, it brings that choice back, that agency back. And I think too, it would cultivate self-compassion, because
Yes.
you're observing without judgment. You're creating these distinctions between you and your thoughts, and you're learning to trust yourself again. Like, okay, my body's doing this. What is my body trying to tell me? Instead of trying to, suppress it or ignore it or just push through it, these little moments will be like, oh, well, my shoulders are up to my ears. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
That's a cue to my body, that my body's telling me you're really stressed. If you can, and then using my body to actually relax. So not only is my body there to show me where the stress is, but I can use my body for my advantage. I can use my breath to calm myself down and lower my heart rate. I can lower my shoulders and loosen my jaw, and me using my body. It's kind of both, right? Like your body's there show you where you're stressed, but you can also use your body as a way to down regulate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really powerful.
Yeah, you're doing the work.
Yeah. And it's these simple things, and they're not always easy. Simple does not mean easy, because it took me, I started a mindfulness practice like 5 years ago, and it was really hard for me to be present and to even do those check-in moments. I wouldn't even think about doing a check-in moment. I was like, why would I do that? I have stuff to do, And I just wouldn't, I'm like, what's a waste of time? And then I realized how much I was living in a hamster wheel and finding myself just negative self-talk and just ruminating and all these things, that when I incorporated mindfulness and incorporated check-ins, wow. It was like it was a bike, like a wheel, and I stuck a stick in the spoke, and it just kind of stopped, and it kind of woke me up. And I was like, I'm not there right now. Like, I'm here. Like, there's no suffering in the present moment. Like, we're here right now. And those things are either, I'm either stuck in the past or stuck in the future, but right now, like, I'm here. And
those practices, there's not like a role on that and what that needs to look like. I think the word that comes on as I hear you talk is centering. Like how you center, how you ground yourself.
Totally. Yes.
Because we can easily get caught on the hamster wheel, or what I call trauma loops, or I'm caught in the chaos, or I'm caught in these rigid patterns, if you will. But can I invite myself to get to a place where I can observe, you could say, these tendencies or this area over here in my life, but arrive at a place where I can notice and choose, rather than get caught in the experience of everything. And you mentioned earlier, just what we haven't really discussed is body resourcing. Like, how do you use the body to regulate, affect? And so, because when it comes to stress and anxiety, you mentioned just the shoulders, the tension, the clenched jaw.
Yes.
Well, anxiety and stress will be expressed in the body in that way. And what people, it sounds so simple, but really, I think when you resource the body, it affects the mind. So when you calm the body, it helps calm this, because they're connected.
Yes.
And so instead of trying to think your way out of, the sense of overwhelmingness, stress, or, my kid just did this, or my husband or wife did this, it's learning to start here, right? And kind of gather some space with yourself, calm this down, whether that needs to be, releasing the tension, bring in breath. Right. Breath is just, that's the entry point of, you could say, awareness and regulation, is breath work, and establish your breath, and then, allow yourself to kind of stay present and calm down. But yeah, those body resourcings are so helpful.
Absolutely. And like you're talking about with the breath, it's an immediate access to your body, where you can use your breath to upregulate yourself. Some people do a self-induced way where they can increase their stress threshold, but think about it. If you have short, shallow breathing, that's a panic, that'll induce a panic attack. Or if you do nasal breathing in, imagine the air going down, opening your ribs down to your belly and going back out. The slower you breathe, it'll literally lower your heart rate, and it'll help you calm down. And I don't think it's really talked about a lot, just how effective and how quickly your breath is. And I've been studying a neuroscientist, Dr. Andrew Huberman, out at Stanford, and he talks about a physiological sigh. And it's a practice that anybody can do. It's like, it's pretty much the same thing as when you see really anybody who's sobbing or crying, but like kids in particular, and they're, when they're catching their breath. We have kids, so we've seen our kids, having those moments. But even myself, when I'm sobbing really hard, but the physiological sigh is an inhale and then a second quick inhale and then an exhale. That's an extended exhale. And if you do 3 rounds of that, that literally balances out the CO2 and oxygen levels in your body, and it's a real-time tool that anybody can use. So that's an example of a way that someone could be sitting in traffic, or they're sitting at, wherever they are, they can implement that tool. It's really quick. And that's the beauty of these things, that there are simple tools that you can implement, like that check-in. Like, no one has to know you're doing the check-in. That's fine.
Right.
That check-in's for you.
No one knows what you're doing.
Yeah, they don't know what you're doing, but if it helps you and it works, like, go for it, Well, RJ, I really appreciate all your time. You have shared so much valuable information. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think it's good for people who are thinking about counseling or therapy. I think it's good. Help is here. Help is available. Don't reject it.
Yeah.
And it's important fit. I think if you don't have to just force yourself to be with a certain counselors, and that doesn't offend us, because what matters is that you get help and the right care. And so the book you offered is a great entry point. Obviously here at Hope Road, we have 11 counselors, and so there's support here. I know there's obviously in the Tyler region too. And so I can't thank you enough just to help people become more aware of resources, and to know this is okay. Like, it's this conversation, this talk, it's about being healthy and being human, and we need to do this together. So
absolutely.
I appreciate creating this format and
thank you.
Adventum.
That means a lot. And that's my heart, and your heart too, is to let people know that there's another way, and that we all need each other, and that we're meant to lean on one another, and that we can't do this alone. And that if it wasn't for, your training and other people, like, that's the whole point. We can bring our gifts together and say, hey, here's this, try this. And thank you for taking the time to share everything. And like you said, I was going to ask how people can find you. Hope Road Counseling. You guys have social media pages and stuff. And
hoperoadcounseling.org. Obviously call, and the best thing to do is call front office and to schedule an appointment. And or if there's questions too, I mean, we do 15-minute consultations, just if people have questions about counseling the process or a particular counselor. We're happy to answer those questions too.
And do you guys do virtual counseling?
Yeah. So we do telehealth. We do virtual.
Okay, cool.
Of course, yeah. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, I figured you did, but I just want to make sure. So.
We're all getting used to remote, doing this remote, and so we do both. I mean, so clients definitely feel more safe doing things remotely right now. Yes. So we got back.
Cool. Well, thanks again, RJ. Thank you, everybody who came on and joined us. I hope it was an encouraging and an informative talk. I know I learned a lot. Again, the book, if you're interested in learning more about trauma, there's lots of other resources, but this is a really great place to start if you're wanting to learn more about it. And again, thank you guys for joining in. Your mental health, our mental health, we're all connected, and I just want to commend each and every one of you that is on your own journey. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone's healing path is different, and we want to be there to support you in whatever that looks like. So thank you all again. We're so grateful for each and every one of you, and until next time, you guys take care.